بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We usually take this time before Salatul Jummah to answer questions that have been submitted online. If you're interested in having your question answered, you can download our app. It's the Al-Hijrah app. It's available both on the App Store and on the Play Store. Or you can scan the image when you walk in, get your question answered. Open your camera. A link will pop up. Click on the link, inshallah, and you can submit your question like that. If you need to break your prayer, how do you properly exit? By doing two taslim. So whatever position you're in, if somebody passes gas, or if you remember you don't have wudu, for example, then whatever position you're in, if you're standing, if you're sitting, whatever the case might be, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and exit the prayer. When does zakat become obligatory to pay? When you hold the nisab. So the nisab, I think right now it's around $4,500, between $4,500 and $5,000, depending on the gold standard. If you hold that amount for one fiscal year, so one lunar year, if you hold that amount of money, for example, if I came into $10,000 today I have $10,000. 1 year from today, so today is like what, the 14th of Safar, 15th of Safar. So 15th of Safar next year, if I'm still holding that $10,000 or even $8,000, I would pay zakat at that time. So the moment I reach the nisab, the minimum amount, if I hold that amount for 1 year, I would pay zakat on that money, and I would pay 2.5% on that. And you have to, Can we really only eat labiha halal meat? So I discussed this question before on what does it mean to be labiha and what does it mean to mean halal and the different levels. So you have a spectrum of opinions concerning this issue. You have some people who are more strict and say that it has to be hand slaughtered individually. Some they allow machine slaughter. Some of them will say even if it's slaughtered by Ahl Kitab, then it's permissible. So again, you have a spectrum of opinions. All of them are reasonable. What can we utter with our tongues to seek forgiveness and send peace and blessing upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So seeking forgiveness, the easiest, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh, astaghfiruk ya rabbak, ya rabbi. You know what I mean? So there are different ways that we can express that istighfar or seeking forgiveness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sending salah and salam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the easiest. There are longer ways. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. This is another way of doing that. Wa ala ali Muhammad, wa barak ala Muhammad. Right. So these are different ways of sending salah and salam on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair for everything you're doing for the community. Ameen wa yak. My question is, when a born Muslim is married to a reaver and the reaver is lazy and struggling with mental health and doesn't know how to grow their knowledge of Islam, is that calling it quits? No, not necessarily. So I think this is something that probably deserves individual marital counseling. So I would suggest that this couple book a session either with myself or with Sheikh Shakir or any one of the local imams that you trust, and sit down and kind of see what's going on in the relationship to see how this can be fixed. As long as a person is practicing, it's ideal that we all grow, right? As Muslims, we should try to improve and we should try to be better. And I understand that sometimes people kind of stagnate. So I think it's important to figure out why that individual is stagnating so that we can better his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or better her relationship. And if that's enough, because sometimes people grow, but they grow slowly, right? So if you look at trajectories, sometimes people grow like this, some people like this, sometimes like this, right? So sometimes people grow faster. You as a spouse, as a husband or wife, the question you need to ask is like, okay, this person is growing very slowly. Is this enough for me? Is this reasonable? And if it is, alhamdulillah, that's good. But I think setting those boundaries between the couple is something that is very important. And I think that conversation is one that you need to have with an imam. Sheikh, if we are talking about somebody praising them or explaining a situation for advice, is this considered backbiting or gossip? It depends. So if you're talking about someone in order to advise someone else, so someone comes to me and they're telling me like, hey, listen, I have a really bad relationship with this person and this person is abusive and this person does X, Y, Z. This isn't backbiting because you're coming to me looking for a solution. If you just came to me and you just started talking and say, "Oh, this person is like this," and I'm like, "Well, maybe you should do this." "Oh, I don't need your advice. I just, I just want to talk about this person." Then that's backbiting, right? That's backbiting. That's gossip. That's not helping anyone. But if you're actually going to someone and I, people come to myself all the time, like, whether it be about their spouse, or it could be about their father, or it could be about a friend, or it could be about a child, and they say, "Okay, well, this person is doing this or that person is doing that, and I need help navigating that," and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That wouldn't be considered backbiting. So as long as you're doing it with the intention of seeking advice on how to deal with the situation, then that's okay. And even the person you're talking to, they might tell you, like, and I've had people come and tell me, I said, "Listen, Akhi, that's too much information. I don't need to know that. Okay, let's figure out how to navigate this." Leave that up to the person who you're speaking to kind of direct the conversation and to help you learn to navigate that. Assalamu alaikum, jazakumullah khair. My question is, especially a woman who marries a revert and both couples grow into marriage and have kids and the revert is not really growing. Again, does a person have to grow in their knowledge? And does everybody have to seek knowledge? Right? That's the real question. And the answer is no. Not everybody is obligated to become a scholar. Everybody's obligated to practice. Everybody's obligated to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Everybody's obligated to pray. As long as a person is fulfilling these things, is it better that he grows in his knowledge? Yes, absolutely. Right? We're not here arguing what's better, but the question is, does he actually have to do those things? I'll say no. It seems to me there might be other problems in this marriage, and like I said, I would suggest you make an appointment either with myself or with Sheikh Shakir, so that we can discuss more and see what the issue is, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. I have come to notice that I have become closest to Allah when I'm going through a difficult time in life. I worry that will go further if things start to work out. What do you recommend? Again, this is something that you'll want to come in and talk about and see what it is that's going on. Sometimes through difficulty, we will draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we remember. But those times that when we face times of ease, because like a hayat ma bain al-qabd wal-bast, right? So our lives are when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives and sometimes He takes away. I think you're doing well when things are being taken away, and that's great. I think that's wonderful. But you also have to learn to be thankful when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving. So there's a different type of proximity and a different type of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that a person can learn when Allah is being generous with them. And that we should use that time of goodness to prepare for times of difficulty. So when things are going well and things are going smoothly, I should remind myself to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has blessed me and that He's given this for me. And I should prepare myself that there might be times of hardship that are coming forward. As a man, if I want to get married to a woman, what kind of dating approach is halal for me? There's no dating approach that is halal per se, but this doesn't mean that you can't meet with a potential spouse. And there are three general principles that I like to share. Make sure that it's public, make sure that it's purposeful, and make sure that it's precise. Meaning that if I plan on meeting someone, and depending on the family situation, there are different cultures. We're from a very pluralistic society. People have different backgrounds, people have different cultures. Make sure that you're not, number one, violating any shari'i violations, and you're not violating any cultural violations. Otherwise, it's going to look bad on the family that you're proposing to, right? So if I go and I talk to this girl, and then her father finds out, and he's like, how could you take my daughter? Or how can you talk to my daughter? It's just going to make things worse. So make sure that we understand and we know who the family is who we're approaching and who we're dealing with. So you minimize those issues. Saying that, if the family is okay with it, then it is okay to sit down with a potential spouse in terms of questioning. Okay, well, what are some of the things? What are some of your goals? How do you look to improve yourself? How do you imagine a marriage? What are some expectations that you have from your husband? And then you can share some expectations you have for a wife. All of these are very reasonable conversations, and they're very, I think they're very focus oriented. But telling her, how beautiful she is, like this is not appropriate, right? So it's not going to help the conversation. It's not going to help determine, if this person is marriageable or not. Having very focused conversations on things that have to do with leading to a marriage, That is what's necessary. That's what's important. That is what's allowed. Anything outside of that, you're starting to enter gray area. And the moment you start flirting, this is when you start entering into the muharramat. You start having an emotional attachment to the person, and you start making illogical decisions. So it's important to always make shari, logical decisions to make sure that a couple can come out with the best possible and reasonable result, and Allah knows best.